ACC and PlayStation decided not to agree together, so hence why we were out of the session for the moment. But the Euro game restarted. Apologies if anybody was or did see any interruptions to the broadcast there, but we'll get back into the server right this second, especially as they start to reset that back up. So let's have a little look here, as we've got then the whole session now open for the Simnet Super Sprint Sunday Season 19 Round 5, and this is going to be the feature race. So let's try that once again. If you saw me out there, no you didn't. Let's see if the servers are back up, and let's see if, well, the server is back up, and let's see what is going on with the stream. Make sure that the stream is all okay, because we want to see if you guys can watch it, and that's the main thing. So let me just have a quick look whilst we dial into that, as we've got another exciting race coming up. Now, fully reverse grid, that means the quick guys are at the back, and the slower guys of AM and those who've hit problems further on are, well, I'm not going to say that they're the slowest guys, because they're all a lot quicker than your average driver. Let's just see if we can select another one. So that's Andrew Eden is going to be our guinea pig, let's say, for that particular one. We've got Jared Vermeulen now going out in, I think, alongside Owen Harris. So a couple of drivers now going up for a little bit of circuit acclimatisation there. We're going to have a look at the timetables now. What time the race is going on? Nothing there. So I think it's high time that we turn back to the garage. We are, and we can see now the race starting at 8 PM. So it's going to be what you see here. It's going to be a night race for 40 minutes. So certainly these two drivers gaining a little bit by going out there, with Vermeulen and Harris both pounding round. And Vermeulen, it's helpful for him to be in traffic, because not everybody's as quick as him. You'll be shocked to hear. And with Harris himself, he's going to be experiencing a few quicker drivers come through the field. So again, that makes a bit of sense for him to be coming forwards. Will hopefully be uninterrupted with no errors from the game there. Let's just see. I think the server's back up, and do comment and do let me know if that is not the case. As we can see there, that is Harris now going through, reacclimatising himself with the probably the most difficult corner, one of the most difficult corners on the game, but certainly the most difficult corner on the track, which is the cheetah curve there, the second to last corner, just through crocodiles as well. So a couple of other drivers out there as well. Jamie Thacker, who was quick in the AM class, but it didn't really come together for him, did it? We'll wait to see what happened there. I'm sure the forum will be awash with drivers who've said what's happened. We've certainly seen Adam Sharp reporting a collision there, which I'm sure will be picked up by the stewards a little bit further on. Certainly unseen by us, so no further need for us to speculate there. There's Vermeulen now going through the middle sector, going into Sunshine Curve, going into Clubhouse Curve, through the left-hander, an awkward sort of heel-shaped left-hander, fighting back out onto the S's, going downhill before then immediately straight back up, and quite steep as well, so your car really does grip up through the right-hander, and then you just drive almost vertically before you get to a part where it levels out, a bit like a tabletop, to be honest with you, going then into Neukoop in the hairpin, double apex hairpin as well. Down the mine shaft we go, and before you have to get on the brakes there, as the track widens going into the crocodiles. So with a tight right-hander, a little left-handed kink, before then the cheetah curve, the notorious cheetah curve. Avoid the sleeping policeman on the inside. It's going to be more difficult with the fact now that we are going to be racing at night. We've got 45 seconds to go. Who else has gone out there? Who else can we terrorise for a bit? Luke Richings is going to be the victim here. Now, so for the reverse grid race, it's going to be a battle of strategy, because there'll be certain drivers at the back who might decide to pit early on lap number 1. Get your 1 litre stop out of the way, because reminder, there is no compulsory tyre stop, so you get your 1 litre stop out of the way early. Or if you're towards the sharp end, to say if you're going to be Adam Sharp, or if you're going to be Hyman's at the top end of the race, you might want to extend Probably going to want to sort of pit maybe as late as you possibly can, or certainly when you think there's going to be no gap, because we have seen instances where drivers who have pitted, drivers at the back who have pitted, have actually caught up with slower round drivers and been held up further down the line. So if you think that you can get away and you don't get caught up in any shenanigans earlier on towards the sharp end, then it might be better for you to go a little bit longer. You won't see so many pit stops unless some drivers are getting held up in mid-pack. You won't see that many pit stops in the middle of the race, so it'll be very much Class A and Class B. As we now wait for the session to restart, we can get our teeth into the 40 minutes of mayhem that promises to be race number 2 for round 5 of the FRL Super Sunday Sprint Championship. I'll get there in the end. With as we watch now, Owen Harris again, very impressive the last race, and obviously at Valencia a couple of weekends ago where he won the feature race at a canter. Really managed that race really well, and it's just he and I think Luke Richings out. Luke Prentice has gone out, done what feels like a practice start down into. How's he crashed there? Anyway, never mind. It is as we suspected. It's going to be Paul Trotman on pole position in the Lexus. He shares row number 1 with Wouter Heijmans in the Ferrari, car number 717. Adam Sharp and Chris Geffen, an experienced duo, on row number 2 in the McLaren and Porsche, before Dale Kelleher and Jamie Thacker share row 3. Trevor Mendes would be lining up in 7th, but he has to serve another pit stop penalty, so he will be starting from the pit lane. So it's Danny Felix and Serafina Cabino who will share row 4. Jordan Marshall and Daniel Kazakevich will share row number 5 in 9th and 10th, with Darren Mark Davies in 11th ahead of Alexander Kalugin. Luke Prentice, who was the driver that had the drive-through penalty at the start, otherwise what might have been for him, he will begin row number 7 in 13th ahead of Mark Alino in 14th. Luke Richings in 16th. In 15th, will start alongside Gordon Brown in 16th and Matteo D'Amica in 17th ahead of the AM-class winner Owen Harris. Lee Colpitts will start in 19th ahead of Renard Serpentine in 20th, with Paul Vidler beginning row 11 and 21st ahead of Daniel Starkov, a man who's had a really strong silver season. Václav Pospišil in 23rd shows row number 12 with Jamie Sharp, with Maxime Gonalons, who should be starting for the pit lane, is currently showing us 26th. So 25th will be Andrew Eden ahead of 26th place Brooklyn Dogton. The silver class winner had a really impressive run, didn't he? So 5th place overall and the silver class win. Morgan Grace will start from 27th once this all shakes out, should all drivers follow the rules, with Alberto Aragolis on his return to the championship in 28th. They're going from row 14. Fabio Travaglioli and Jared Vermeulen are the last of those who completed all of their laps. They are 29th and 30th, with Marvin Hook in 33rd, having not completed the right amount of laps to start from the front. So Gonalons and Mendes, by regulation, will be starting from the pit lane. So we will expect to see them drop in 45 seconds' time. It's Trotman in the Lexus versus Heijmans in the Ferrari. You would expect that Trotman should have the upper hand in the Lexus off the start, but then from there, the Ferrari, the McLaren and the Porsche behind all look menacing. We've got 30 seconds to go. Doesn't look like there's going to be any of the rain that blighted the end of the race last time out, so it's going to be dry all the way, but it is going to be dark at 8 p.m. That is pretty much nightfall in South Africa at the moment, so certainly going to add another dimension for the drivers going into the first corner.
10 seconds.
We've got now Trotman 5 seconds away from leading the field around, and with the best will in the world, that will be fairly new to Paul Trotman, an experienced and safe driver that he is. Very rarely seen on pole position because of the sheer standard that we've got, but that won't phase him at all yet. Trevor Mendes does indeed dip into the pits, and Matthias Gonalons this time dips into the pits, so we should be all to regulation now. It's Trotman and Heijmans. Heijmans hasn't left the grid, so that's going to be Adam Sharp with potentially free run on Paul Trotman. And that fell to Heijmans. How has he not left the grid? Well, that's going to be a bit of a problem. He might be disconnected and disqualified if that carries on. We're going to start from the lead. Paul Trotman now We're just waiting. Go, 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 go. And there is a couple of drive-through penalties. And oh my goodness me, it's Trotman and it's Sharp. Sharp now pulls off to the race. I think his race is done. That's a Hymans has pulled into the pit lane. So it's going to be Chris Gedman who's going to be the leader if he stays out of trouble. Paul Trotman now does lead into the first corner. They've already got a bit of a gap as Dale Kelleher and Jamie Thacker have fought going into the first corner. Wait to see how that shakes out as we get back into the first sector. I think that's Trotman ahead. Trotman with his drive-through penalty still leading ahead of Chris Gedman with Wouter Hymans, Trevor Mendes. They've just got back through now. So Mendes and Hymans having an awful start there as Matthias Gonalons leaves the pits as well. So those three all a bit delayed leaving. Chris Gedman is going to lead when Trotman does come in to serve his drive-through penalty. I think Adam Sharpers will say that he's retired from the race. It's been a pretty poor showing there from the Yorkshireman, all really through no fault of his own. Certainly earlier on, it would seem. But second race, it's all gone wrong for the man from Leeds there. Chris Gedman now having a look into Neukoop. Can he pass Trotman before he serves that penalty? Yes, he can, because he gets on the inside of Trotman, frightens Trotman off the road going there. And I think Jordan Marshall has made his way up into the lead of the AM class as well, because Jamie Thacker's followed him through. The Frenchman there rising up from a little bit further back there is Chris Gedman now in silver. Is away and gone. His nearest rival is Serafino Gabino, who's stuck behind a couple of AMs. With Trotman due to serve his penalty, it's Dale Kelleher now in 6th position ahead of Danny Felix. Luke Prentice up to 8th in the Pro, and he pits immediately. Probably a wise call from Luke, as he was due to get stuck behind a lot of drivers slightly slower than him, with Kasakevich, Richings and Darren Mark Davies going around. A few more drivers have come into the pit lane, so we'll see exactly how that shakes out. Trotman's obviously into service drive through, and we'll see now as a few drivers now tumble down the order. Well, Marshall is just ahead of Jamie Thacker for the lead of the AM class. It's Gabino who is currently with the fastest. That car 246 has a stop-go penalty as well. That is Paul Trotman's day done, isn't it? Well, he had the drive-through penalty that he'd served, and a stop-go penalty now for the Welshman. It has all gone wrong in race number 2 for Paul Trotman. Trotman now rejoins 17th, but realistically with a pit stop and a stop-go to do, that's going to be another lap gone for Paul Trotman there as we concentrate now towards the front. Marshall within sight of Chris Gedman. Obviously for the overall lead, doesn't matter in terms of class with Marshall in AM flashing away. That won't be popular with Chris Gedman, I can tell you that now. So Marshall tries to see if he can find him off the road. Though he's got to be a bit careful, because obviously you do not want to have any accidents anyway, but you certainly don't want to be getting involved too heavily with drivers in a different class. Jamie Thacker now in 3rd, still ahead of Gabino, with Dale Kelleher proving to be a little bit of a roadblock for Felix Kasakevich and Richings there. Marco Lino now has just come for a couple of AM drivers, Kalugin and Harris. Owen Harris had an excellent start to this race as well, was way back in terms of the AM class and the AM championship in this race anyway. It's already very much on the coattails and should be looking to get quite a good result here to cap off what's been an excellent race. Kasakevich there defending from Richings there. Richings not really a candidate to overtake him. Kasakevich is more after Danny Felix's 5th position, because if he can get through, Kasakevich does have a look down the inside, but not enough really to frighten Felix off the road. Felix has really matured. Okay, he's still in AM, but remember even a couple of months ago where he was miles off the back, and now he's certainly into the race, certainly into the pack there. So it's been great to see there from Danny Felix going forwards. What won't be great to see from his point of view is the fact that he's got a blue Porsche all over him just 5 minutes into the race. Kasakevich is certainly like an annoying wasp that won't go away, won't leave your beer alone. And he will be certainly looking to pass Felix, who's stuck behind Kelleher. Dale Kelleher, car 334 has the stop-go penalty for speeding in the pit lane, so we'll see who that is. That is, so Trotman's got his, it's Alexander Kalugin, so that is pretty big news, because the championship leader in AM, it doesn't look like he's going to be scoring any impressive points here today. It's a tricky pit stop, isn't it? Tricky pit lane, because you're on the pit line, the pit limiter line, pretty much straight away. We've got Trevor Mendes showing us 24, so it's been a bit of a difficult start. Obviously, he was a bit slow leading leaving the pit lane. So Gabino now with Marshall having dropped a little bit further off the back of Chris Gebman. Gebman has it under control for the moment. He would quite like, I would suspect, Marshall to stay in between himself and Serafino Gabino. Gabino, quick, can be an aggressive driver, so he won't want to hang around for the moment, but if he can get past Marshall without too much damage to himself and Marshall's race, then I think, is Marshall pulling over and letting him through? I think he is, which might be, because no, he isn't. He's just taking a rather unorthodox line down the straight, certainly defending a lot earlier than you would expect. Gabino there doesn't make any inroads on Marshall. Obviously, this is not really for position in a sense that it is on track, but not for class. But if Marshall can stay ahead of Gabino, Gabino's got a bit of a gap there to the next AM driver, which is Dale Kelleher. Kelleher fighting still with Kazakevich and Felix, and it's a good race. Fourth place already on the road. Obviously, there's a few drivers who have pitted. Luke Prentice now still leading the pitted class, let's say. Gonalons, Richings and Mendes a little bit further back haven't completed their stops, but he's got an old rival behind him, hasn't he, Luke Prentice? Vidler wasn't quite as quick as we would expect. These two have collided to quite catastrophic consequences earlier in the season, and they've had a few run-ins since. So Vidler now 1 second, 1.5 seconds off the back of Luke Prentice. There's another stop-go penalty. That's for Luke Richings in silver. So the pit lane entrance proving to be, especially at night time, a really difficult undertaking for the drivers, because the line is still, as Luke Prentice does climb up the curb there a little bit, the line is still just after the hairpin, so you can't really judge it. Once you're out, you want to make as much time as possible and accelerate out, but you don't want to be accelerate too hard, because if you do, you then have to stand on the brakes, and the speedo can't necessarily catch up with what you're doing. So Luke at the moment they're in 13th place. The vast majority of the drivers have pitted, haven't they? There's only 12 out of 32 that haven't stopped, with people like Morgan Grace, who I suspect might be coming in if he can't pass Aaron Mark Davies. No, he doesn't. The Porsche versus Mustang, it's traction versus sheer brute force. It's Pro versus AM. It's Wales v Wales for 11th place. Aaron Mark Davies in no mood to be giving that up to, well, races Marcolina in silver does now pit, so that is 11 drivers left. Pino, meanwhile, has got past Marshall. Marshall takes a sensible approach, even if he has lost out. He's still got a decent gap to Kazakevich. He's still got that buffer, hasn't he, between himself and the next AM driver. Dale Kelleher now has been relieved of fourth place by Kazakevich, and Danny Felix has just got past Dale Kelleher for fifth, so that's the second in AM, but Danny Felix just got past with Owen Harris. They're having risen again up the rankings, so he's now 7th, just behind. I think if he feels he can get past Kelleher and Felix, he'll be well into the race, so no need for him to pit now, with especially having won the first class race. We're just only a quarter of the way through here now, so no need for him to be diving into the pits as it stands at the moment, although he could really do with getting past Kelleher sooner rather than later. Just going down the mine shaft now, going into the left-hander before a heavy braking zone of Crocodile. We'll stay with this for the moment because there may be an overtake here. The track widens, it's a difficult braking zone. McLaren there certainly a lot later than Kelleher onto the brakes into the right-hander, but Kelleher there steady Eddie through there and just wants to avoid the inside curb. He does just about. And that's another time where it's been hung on to. Now, Harris, as soon as I said he probably won't pit, he pits. He pits out of traffic. Probably quite understandable, but there we'll just see. Already into the pit limiter, so you have to really judge it. You have to really throw the anchors out, but make up maximum time. You've got Václav Pospisil in all of this as well, the pro driver that has stayed out in 7th place. Not sure that he'll be necessarily that happy with where he's ended up. As we can see now, Luke Prentice is leading Paul Vidler by not an awful lot of time. It's 8 tenths per second. It was 2 tenths, which suggests that Vidler's had a swing and a miss at his old foe, Luke Prentice. We'll stay with this for the moment because the man in the stable of Jaron Vermeulen in the Ferrari has possibly some unfinished business with Prentice, which we'll stay with now. Travaglioli and Aragoneses also in close attendance, with Jaron Vermeulen in 14th with the fastest lap. We're only a couple of seconds off this, so Luke has got to get his elbows out if he wants to stay in the lead. Vidler 7 tenths and Travaglioli only a further 4 tenths per second behind. They're only into Clubhouse now. And crucial there is a little bit of brake dabbing there. That's to keep the back end settled, I suspect. The Lamborghini very good on brakes as they go through the S's. Downhill for the first part, but then it rises up the hill pretty much as you go through the right-hander. Can make the car handling a little bit difficult as they now head up to Neukoop in the left-hander at turn 11 now, double apex. And yeah, you can see the Ferrari has caught up just a little bit, although the Lamborghini has impressive traction off of that corner. Down the mineshaft as Vidler and Travaglioli. We're going to go to this now because Travaglioli has got an overlap through the mineshaft, goes down the inside. We've got Vidler now laying on the brakes into the crocodiles, outbrakes himself slightly. Yes, he does. And Travaglioli says, thank you very much, I'll have that. I'm into P11. So Vidler there, bit of inexperience there, being caught out by Travaglioli. Aragona says a little bit further back now, next up. It doesn't get any easier. It also doesn't get any easier for Luke Prentice because he's gone now very much out of the frying pan and into the fire. Vatla Poshmishil now comes into the pit to make his stop. He's going to be a little bit further back after being held up by the trials and tribulations of the AM class drivers in front of him. Now, Prentice is going to kind of want to get as close as he possibly can to some AM drivers, maybe try and see if he can put a couple of them between him and Travaglioli. Now, I say that because he's, at the moment, showing his 9 seconds behind Darren Mark Davies ahead, who we had a little bit of trouble getting past earlier on, but it might be pretty key for him to put some slow drivers in between him and Travaglioli. Goes slightly wide through Sunset now, and that won't help him because Travaglioli that's going to be like a red rag to a bull now. The Ferrari has a look into the S's. You're not really going to get anywhere there, so it's been a wasted energy there from Travaglioli, but he is sizing him up. And I can see a run perhaps into Loico coming up shortly. The double apex left hand, he's going to go round the outside. Prentice now will hold it on the apex, hold it on the inside, not let him have a cutback and not let him have a switcheroo, and the Lamborghini lives to fight another day. Now going down the hill through the mine shaft, he's I think going to have to stay to the inside here. We'll keep it now because Travaglioli's going to have a run around the outside. The Ferrari earlier on the brace than the Lamborghini just about gets it stopped, but not stopped enough. And Travaglioli now makes his way to the lead of the pro class with none of the pro drivers still out, as we've got further trouble behind. Paul Vidler spins over the cheetah curb, and that hampers Aragona. Says it does wonders for his stablemate Jared Vermeulen and leaves Luke Prentice further vulnerable to cars behind. Aragona says had to really stand on the brakes, did really well to miss Paul Vidler, but Vidler there who has just got back going. That'll be some I think quite a few places lost in that sharp Poshby Shield. Vidler's gone pretty much to the back of pro, isn't he, with Gordon Brown. I think it's just Eden and Grace who are yet to come through ahead as he comes out in 19th ahead of Daniel Starkloff, and all of Vidler's good hard work done. Well, that's undone, isn't it? So we now go back to the consequences, if you like, with Vermeulen now over Luke Prentice like a cheap suit. So two pretty aggressive drivers. Luke does not like being overtaken, so makes it as hard as possible, whereas Vermeulen sees an opportunity where others doesn't. Let's put it that way. So he's now looking around the outside on the exit of Clubhouse. Not really going to get anywhere there. Vermeulen, who has the rather ominous number 1 on his car in a car or a series, which doesn't really mandate. The number 1 is on there. That's confidence for you. Now he goes around the outside going into Loico. Is he going to try and size up a switchback? No, because Luke Prentice does keep it on the apex. They're now going down the hill through the mine shaft. He won't get much change through the left-hander. Though he is looking to the inside. That's not really an overtaking spot. He does go around the outside now, Vermeulen. Is he going to be able to hang it on there? I think Luke has let him go, because it's not the hardest he's ever fought. He's still on the inside through the cheetah curves, but you don't really want to be going side by side through there with the death curve on the inside, and Vermeulen makes that move stick. So he was first in race number 1. He's now second behind Travaglioli, who he led home earlier. So is it going to be even Stevens for the championship so far? We've still got 8 drivers ahead who haven't stopped, with Travaglioli now 5.5 seconds behind Darren Mark Davies, and obviously Vermeulen having battled a little bit further back, from a little bit further back, 2.5 seconds back. We'll see how that goes as Kelleher and Hook are fighting away with Darren Mark Davies a little bit further back. I think that's a lapsed car in between them, because I was going to start call saying it was Danny Felix, but Felix has gotten 3.5 seconds up the road from this. Now 2 seconds behind Kazakevich, who's third in silver for the moment, although Renard Serfontaine is leading the pit group, let's say. Renard Serfontaine and Sharp in the 69 Ferrari, currently leading that, with Marcolino a little bit further back. So that's something to keep an eye on. There's a little bit of well, it's a short pit lane here, because you simply through the inside of the final corner and about halfway down the straight, just where the kink is. So it's not a particularly long stop. I'd estimate about 40 seconds is what you'll need. Gepman having not really built that over the silver cars behind, but he's certainly in a pretty decent place, even if he's still got attention from Serafino Gabino. So Gabino there ahead of Marshall leading the AM class, with, I think, Owen Harris again leading those AM drivers that are pitted. He cycled through into the lead with Trevor Mendes, who obviously hasn't stopped because of his strife earlier on. Matthias Gonalons, Thacker and Trotman. Trotman obviously having a few issues, it's fair to say, earlier on with his pit entry and then his starting position, causing him to be towards the back. I think he's also got, I think that's problems for Josh Clayton. Hasn't stopped, he's 30th, so I wonder what's happened there with Alexander Kalugin, 4 laps down. I wonder if they came together. His lead Colpitts is 2 laps down in all of this, and they're fighting. Are they fighting with Kalugin? I think, well, that's not really going to help, because Kalugin's a little bit further back, so I think that's just those getting out of each other's way. That's Starklov in the background, so that would tell me that they're not fighting. Someone who is fighting is Václav Pospíšil. He's got Sharp just ahead of him in the silver class Ferrari. Obviously Adam Sharp, the namesake of Ferrari in front, has retired after starting issues earlier on. Pospíšil 4/10 of a second behind, with Aragonesis now the latest to have a go at the rather beleaguered Lamborghini Luke Prentice, who's had battle after battle. No shame in it, really, because he's lost out to Travaglioli and Vermeulen, who were the 2 established quickest drivers in the championship. But he's got Aragonesis, who showed prodigious pace in his return to FRL a little bit earlier on in the week it was a circuit of the Americas, but certainly just simply drove away from a couple of established race winners. Aragonesis there, half a second behind going into the Crocodiles, and Luke, who's been rather bullied, I think, by the quicker drivers. He's going to be happy that once Aragonesis, if Aragonesis does get past, he'll be all over. As soon as I say that, curse of the commentator, Aragonesis hits the inside curb, does really well to keep it out of the wall on the inside, so that'll be a little bit of respite there for Luke Prentice, who I think now has a gap of about 4 or 5 seconds over the Spaniard. So Aragonesis has now got that time to catch back up with Renard Serfontaine. 4 seconds it is. Nearly. Renard Serfontaine now getting a sight of 11th place. Well, 3.5 seconds back. I don't think he'll be too fussed about that, with Serfontaine very much looking rearwards rather than frontwards. Chris Gepman, meanwhile, still has a 1.8 second lead over Serafino Gabino. Gabino, the Italian in the Ferrari, represents the Vatican City on Thursday nights. He's not really making any inroads on Gepman. Gepman driving a fine race, keeping it very consistent. 10 laps in, and coming off turn 11, I think it's very much even Stevens between those two at this moment in time, with Marshall a little bit further back, driving a mature race, the Frenchman, who has improved really not only with this season but through the Thursday night season. He's been a regular fixture in that, Jordan Marshall, and it's been good to see, but not quite at the pace of Gepman and Gabino at this moment in time, but keeping Kazakevich in silver very comfortably behind. And we were mentioning, weren't we, about the pro drivers catching up with some of the AM drivers that have pitted, and Darren Martin Davis is the first to fall victim, with Travaglioli having passed him and gained a second on him. Davis now goes through cheetah curves. Is he going to come into the pits? I don't think he is. And Vermeulen there having a half look down the inside. It's not really going to help the Ferrari, because the Mustang has got run down the straight, but the Ferrari, decent exit, decent grip off of the final corner, 0.2 of a second behind Davies. I think he might try and have Darren Martin Davies, with Davies there in the Mustang, not in the same race, breaks a little bit early. Vermeulen dives to the inside and gets it stopped. Does he? Yes, he does. It's an open corner, and Vermeulen there is easily through with Darren Mark Davies and can now go and chase Travaglioli, who's going to catch, you would think, Dale Kelleher and possibly Marvin Hook ahead within the next couple of laps. Vermeulen now having passed Darren Mark Davies, 2 seconds back now, so that is a pretty inviting gap. Luke Prentice, meanwhile, has Aragoneses catching him once again. Was 2.5 seconds, 3 seconds, or 3.8 seconds across the line last time out. It's now 2.3 seconds, so would expect that the Mercedes will catch back up at some point. Sefontaine dropping off as well in the Ferrari behind. And as we go now to Vaclav Pospisil, still behind as they go through Clubhouse. Sharp, who's driving an excellent race, who is the second of the silver drivers that's pitted. So, a bit of difficulties earlier for the Ferrari in race number 1. Runs slightly wide. I don't think that will matter too much, but certainly an excellent recovery from Sharp in race number 2, which is kind of what the reverse grid is designed to do. With Pospisil now feels his way through Loic Koumou. He himself has recovered a little bit because he was certainly disadvantaged, let's say, in the race earlier on with where he was. They've got Marcolino now holding up Gordon Brown. This is for 16th at the moment, but probably in reality a net 10th. Brown goes around the outside, going into Crocodiles. Does he sell him the dummy? He does sell him the dummy, but can he make it stick? Lino has decent traction, and through the cheetah curve, very much one at a time. Gordon Brown hits the inside curb, controls it rather well. That's not going to lose him too much to the car ahead. That might lose him a second, but I would suspect the relative pace difference between those two won't cost him much more than a lap. Lino now crosses the line, and Brown 1.1 seconds back with Owen Harris behind, who's not going to cause him any issues. Harris there, a pretty safe lead at the moment, I would suggest, in AM class. Is certainly, if he hasn't got the lead, then he'll certainly be towards the sharp end, with Marshall probably the only driver I would suggest as the candidate to be ahead. Herc, meanwhile, has got Travaglioli and Vermeulen on the back of him, as Dale Kelleher has rather sensibly let them go and let them get on with it. Darren Mark Davies, meanwhile, might be a little bit of a fly in the ointment for Luke Prentice. Luke Prentice now 2.5 seconds behind Darren Mark Davies, but only 1.8 clear of Aragoneses, chipping away Aragoneses. I think he'll be back on, Luke, within the next couple of laps. Sefontaine having dropped off at the back. We're going to go now to Travaglioli. Is he going to have a run at Herc? Marvin Herc now is defending with all his might in the BMW through the Crocodiles complex, now through Cheetah Curve, and this is where Travaglioli's got to play it right. The disadvantage he's got is Herc does pit. The disadvantage he's got is he's the first driver to hit traffic. So if he has issues like that where he gets held up, but Vermeulen, who was 1.2 seconds behind, is now going to be less than a second behind. He basically can profit off of Travaglioli's hard work, and that's exactly what the South African's done. So Herc has pitted, so he'll be dropping towards the rear of the field. I don't think the staying out trick has necessarily worked for a lot of the AM drivers, with Kazakevich still stuck behind the leading bastion in this race at the moment, which is Jordan Marshall in the AM class. I don't suspect that he'll be an AM next season, but Kazakevich starting to turn the screw a little bit on the Frenchman. So the passionate Frenchman there going through Clubhouse, the left-hander, the awkward little left-hander, sets him up now for the S's, but Travaglioli and Vermeulen now are looking ominously big in the mirrors. There's a certain aura, I would imagine, for an AM driver when a pro driver of their stature comes through. I'm a pro driver, I'm certain I don't carry the same fear factor, but Travaglioli and Vermeulen certainly behind, it carries a bit of a different weight, doesn't it, if you're an AM and a silver. So Kazakevich might want to get the move done on Marshall, or they might want to get out of the way to avoid losing time. Now 1.5 seconds separating Kazakevich, who hasn't pitted, and Travaglioli, who has pitted, with Vermeulen 0.6 of a second behind. Just going to see now, and the prediction has come true of Luke Prentice having been caught once again by Aragoneses. Aragoneses, who'd made the mistake behind 3 or 4 laps before, did really well to keep it out of the wall, but it did hamper the Spaniard, and he's now going for third in class, and I would suggest what will possibly be third on the track by the time this all sorts itself out. Dale Kelleher, meanwhile, pits, and he was at the sharp end of the AM class, and we'll see where that drops him. I can see that Hook, who was ahead, and Felix, who was ahead of him, they've dropped out to 22nd and 25th, so it doesn't look like that tactics worked for the baton. I think there's a real chance that Harris might actually be leading this if Marshall isn't by the time this all goes through. So Luke Prentice there, half a second clear of Aragonis. Aragonis a pretty safe driver, it must be said, but relentlessly quick in that Mercedes. But the problem Luke's got is it's not just Darren Mark Davies, that's Luke Richings just ahead. Darren Mark Davies is 9.3 seconds, a gap between Marshall and Vermeulen. Marshall having, I think, quite sensibly gotten out of the way of Travaglioni and Vermeulen, with Kazakevich having just passed him. But it's not going to be just Darren Mark Davies, who he's not entitled to let him through, he doesn't have to let him through, but it's Luke Richings who should let him through. Richings, who does go wide now through the S's, so there's an added complication here because Davis now is stuck behind Richings, who might well get out of the way here, but it's two cars basically adding a bit of a roadblock here for the pro drivers of Luke and Aragonis. Davis now, is he going to be able to get past Richings? He's been shown the blue flags, but the rules dictate that you need to be out of the way within a lap if the gap is less than 0.3 of a second. No expert, but that looks pretty close. So Davis now clips Cheetah Curve, and he's going to pit now. That's pretty sensible from Darren Mark Davis. Good news for Luke Prentice, because it just means that he's got to get past Richings. Now, Richings, if he's sensible, will probably tow them along here a little bit and move over just a little bit towards the entrance of the corner. Doesn't look like that's happening, though, does it? With Aragonis now very much in the slipstream of Luke Prentice. This is for third place. Aragonis dives towards the inside. Luke Prentice cuts him off. And all fair there was Richings got out of the way in the corner. Don't know whether that might be reported or not. I would suggest that Luke, being the easygoing guy that he is, probably won't report that. But yeah, Richings getting out of the way into the corner rather than before the straight. So had a little bit of complication, but it actually probably aided Luke in defending. And he lives to fight another day. Now, the drivers behind, Chris Gedman has pitted from the lead of the race, but he's also retained the lead of Silver Class. It's Renat Serfontaine in second ahead of Sharp, Poshbishil. Poshbishil not been able to get past Sharp, with Kazakevich having been second earlier on, dropping to fourth. Not a bad result for the Russian, it must be said. Kazakevich, who has been not necessarily towards the sharp end of Silver, but in fourth place at the moment, ahead of Marcolino. So that represents progress. Marshall, meanwhile, has just let Gordon Brown through. Gordon Brown in Pro, Marshall in AM. Marshall has emerged as the leader of the AM class, but it's by about 6 seconds by my maths, because Owen Harris has worked his way back up into second place, with Starclough behind him, and Dale Kelleher having had an excellent stop. Trouble-free run to third place at the moment. So Dale, who has not attracted the most amount of luck, it must be said, 17th on the road, but third in class, and with a decent gap, 15-16 seconds to Gonalons. Gonalons might catch him because his pace was not AM pace earlier on, but it's still a good result here for Dale Kelleher in 17th. So we wait to see whether the Brit can carry that on, if he can stay trouble-free. And as I say that is Paul Trotman spinning around. I don't know whether the two were linked, but that certainly looked a bit nasty there. Paul Trotman, who's had an awful race, hasn't he? It's just not gone right, whether it's the stop-go for speeding in the pit lane, whether it was a drive-through for starting position. First place has turned into last place, barring a couple of drivers at the moment. So Paul Trotman there, with Clayton, I think, now having passed him, I think, as that will come through as Clayton crosses the line. Yes, he has. The Trotman now drops to second last, with Kalugin the only other driver to have not stopped. We're going to go back to Aragonis, still on the back of Luke Prentice, with Richings now having a bit of a watching brief through the S's, but he won't get anything done there, but he can maybe set something up through the right-hander going up to Neukoop at the turn 11. Now they go up the hill. Prentice goes to the inside to defend, and should keep it stuck to the apex nice and tightly there. 10 minutes to go for Luke for this, so got a little bit of work to do to hold on to third position. Aragonis will not make it easy for him. Aragonis, meanwhile, as we've missed the pass for the lead, Jared Vermeulen has got past Fabio Travaglioni, so order restored from race number one, but we're stuck now with the battle here for Luke for third place, which is helped by Luke Prentice, having had a pretty poor first run with the drive-through at the start, pulling himself up to 21st in the mid-pack, which has probably helped him here. Aragonesis, though, all over him like a cheap suit, the Spaniard. So the Mercedes there has the advantage in the straight, but the Lamborghini, excellent on the brakes. It's 4/10 across the line. I don't think the Mercedes is going to be able to pass him here at the moment. In fact, it's pretty much status quo going into the first corner as Aragonesis takes a slightly tighter line. Won't matter too much because you've got another corner immediately upon you, so as long as they're okay for barbecue, I think that will be very much as is at the moment. Aragonesis slightly better run off of barbecue, but not going to get anywhere into Sunset, which is the next corner. The right-hander Luke defends rather easily going into Sunset, but he's got to make sure now that he doesn't make any mistakes going into Clubhouse. Yeah, you see in fact he's gone defensive into Clubhouse, the left-hander, which is not a place you'd normally overtake, so we must be rather worried about the pace of Aragonesis, which I can't blame him for. He's dropped 14 seconds off the back, so very much a case for Aragonesis of concentrating on this battle. He's got about 6 or 7 laps, I would suggest, to make this move, so it's just about where is he going to do it now into turn 11 at Loico. Again, Luke keeps it tight to the apex there. That's the real strength of the Lamborghini, is that he can brake really, really late and keep it stuck to the inside. He's got decent turn in as well, which is going to prove a bit of a problem for the Mercedes, which might have an advantage on traction, but or on speed, sorry, but you're going to have to use a bit of guile to get past Prentice here as they go through the cheetah curbs now. Little dab of the brakes there from Aragonesis. We'll go back to the battle for the lead because that doesn't look like it's over, does it? As half a second separates Formula and Travaglioli. As Aragonesis now uses all of the track and a little bit more, that won't help, I don't think. That's probably cost him a little bit of time. Yeah, another 10, so he's half a second back. I don't think we're going to see a pass going into the first corner, as Vermeulen, meanwhile, still has Travaglioli all over him like a rash. So Travaglioli, this is the battle for the lead, as we can see as well. Speaking of the lead, Owen Harris looks like he's going to make it a double in the AM class. He's got past Marshall. Marshall has hit some problems, I think, going in, because he wasn't anywhere close to 15th at the moment. He's hit some problems somewhere around the lap, and now Owen Harris with Starkloff following in hot pursuit is leading the AM battle. We've got Vidler coming through, who's a rather quick pro driver, so they'll want to be a little bit careful now, with Kalugin also getting himself involved there. He's a couple of laps down, so I don't see that causing too many problems for Kalugin. He'll get out of the way and carry on. Aragonesis, meanwhile, is he now ahead? No, he's behind still. Luke Prentice with Travaglioli, a similar gap behind Vermeulen, so half a second separates the lead duo and half a second separates the third place, fourth place duo. With 7 minutes to go, pit window is open for another 6 minutes, but that's irrelevant because every single driver is pitted apart from those who probably a couple of laps down looking at this, so yeah, that doesn't matter at all. Travaglioli, meanwhile, still half a second back. I think it's going to be pretty much nose to tail for the Ferraris. 2 insanely quick drivers and 2 insanely quick cars. A little bit of a difference in pace, it must be said, between Prentice and Aragonesis. Aragonesis still all over him, still working really, really hard to get past the belligerent Brit in the Lamborghini with car number 333. Still 4/10 of a second. He's getting good purchase off of that final corner. It's making it really, really difficult for the Mercedes. You're not really going to outbrake a Lamborghini in the Mercedes there. The Lamborghini's supreme on the brakes, so Prentice is going to lead them round 4. You would probably think another lap, because the only place that you can really pass into around here now is probably into the Crocodiles. And you might get a really good run up into Neukup at the top of the circuit. So we'll go back to Travaglioli as they go up to Neukup. That's through the S's now. Downhill, then back uphill. Really does mess with the car's balance. Going up the hill now, driving almost vertical until it levels out. As soon as you get to the tabletop, start braking. As Travaglioli now 4/10 of a second behind. They've got plenty of gap between Luke, so you might as well gamble, because 17 seconds is a lot of time to play with if it goes wrong. 6 minutes to go now. I'd suggest about 4 laps most likely, as Travaglioli goes into the Cheetahs complex, tries to see if he can get a better run through the corner. He can't. He goes slightly wide, and that is Vermeulen fighting. Yeah, you're not going to pass anybody through Cheetah curb there. And Vermeulen now with a bit of traffic ahead. Now, That is the Ferrari, I think, of Sharp. No, it can't be, but it's the Ferrari, I think, there of Jamie Thacker, who's had another difficult race when a lot more looked possible. But he's done really, really well there to get out of the way. Very sensible driving, which is what we like to see. What we also like to see is a battle, and we've got one here for third place as Aragonis now fires himself off the corner. Is he a little bit closer in the Mercedes? I think he is. He's 2/10 of a second behind. But I think the Lamborghini might have to get his elbows out. He does indeed go to the inside. Aragonis goes to the insider. Now, as he is on the brace, Lamborghini now tries to hang it round. Aragonis gets the job done, brakes, and that is an excellent block pass move. And Luke Prentice's resistance, his hold on third place, is broken. Now, the Lamborghini tries to come back through at Barbecue, but I think that is fight over. As Aragonis says there, had to be patient there. Excellent driving between the two drivers, it must be said. Even the one that's being overtaken knew when he was beaten. And that is third place for Aragonis. And Luke Prentice relegated to fourth, where he'll be a little bit more comfortable because he's got Chris Gebman in silver class. 6 seconds behind with Renard Serfontaine of silver class as well. Just behind Poshby-Shiel, Václav Poshby-Shiel, 8 seconds off of fourth place Luke Prentice, Poshby-Shiel in seventh, fifth in the pro class. I don't think there's going to be any fight there for Poshby-Shiel's position because Sharp in the silver Ferrari is a little bit further back, and Gordon Brown a further 10 seconds back. So Poshby-Shiel looking a bit safer there. Let's see if we can find another battle. Well, Owen Harris is making sure that there's no battle for the lead, as he has done pretty much all day. Marshall there, we'll wait to see what's happened to Marshall because he was a little bit further ahead. I think the battle might be Gonalons versus Dale Kelleher. Kelleher now in third position in the AM class, and a return to form for the Mancunian now if he can hold on to third position. And it's been, like I say, a really disappointing season in terms of luck for Dale Kelleher, but this certainly is a reminder of what he can do now. Gonalons, who started from the pit lane first time round, disqualified from the first race because of not starting from the pit lane. He had a qualifying infringement, which is looked down upon very, very harshly by the stewards. 2.6 seconds behind. I get a feeling Gonalons, if he's patient, when he does get to the back of Kelleher, might get there because we've got 2.5 minutes to go, and I suspect that's a further 2 laps for the leaders, so probably 3 laps for these two, with it being a gap now of, I would estimate, 2 seconds as they cross the line. It is 2.1 seconds. Well, I wasn't far out, was I? With Kelleher now having to fight, you would think, for third position in the not too distant future. We've got races there. What's happened to third place? Because Aragonis was third, and now he's fourth. So a further issue there for Aragonis. We're going to go back to the battle for third place, I suspect, in Pro a little bit later on. We've got 2 minutes to go. Travaglioli, meanwhile, still half a second behind Vermeulen. Vermeulen now doing all he can to break the toe. It's 0.4 of a second, so I don't think he's going to get anywhere. Travaglioli going into Prothorn, the second bend. It's the first real breaking point on the circuit as Vermeulen takes a slightly tighter line, but holds on. The luminous green Ferrari versus the turquoise and purple Ferrari. Half a second separates. And Aragonis says, well, we'll wait to see what happened, because Luke he didn't look like he was going to get anywhere near him. So I wonder if Aragonis has had another issue, potentially at Cheetah Curve, the right-hander at the end of the lap, as he did earlier in the race, because Luke was never going to get anywhere near him. So I do wonder what's happened. There certainly doesn't appear to be any damage on the two cars, so that's normally a giveaway of issues. Certainly, speaking of issues, Renard Serfontaine has taken the lead because Chris Gebman has had strife in the lead of silver. So that pretty seismic, because he's got Johnny Sharp now in seventh, who's second in the in the silver class, and Renard Serfontaine at home is going to be the second South African to win at home with the pit window closed. That means we've got less than a minute to go. Aragonis says now all over the back of Luke, I would imagine, towards the end of the lap, 1.1 seconds behind, but he wants his third place back. Meanwhile, Travaglioli nose to tail with Vermeulen. for one more lap. The leader, when he crosses the line, Vermeulen extends a little bit. That's a pretty good final sector. I think the South African might just have this covered at his home race. So we can see now a further battle behind for Dale Kelleher and Matthias Gonalons. Gonalons towards the inside as they go through turn 6. That is Sunset going into Clubhouse. Now this is going to run for 2 laps because they're ahead of the leaders on track. Gonalons now all over the back of Kelleher, who's got to fight with all his might to retain 3rd in class. We'll skip back to that shortly. Travaglioni now a 2nd behind Luke Prentice, with Aragonis now half a second behind Luke Prentice. He's got 1 lap to do it. He's not going to do it into the first corner, so he's going to have to try and force the belligerent Brit into a mistake further around the lap. Easier said than done, because Prentice can be, on his day, a bit of an immovable object, especially when he's in the right mood. So Prentice now holding on for 3rd place in race number 2. A little bit wide through Barbecue there, it must be said, with Aragonis is now closer than he's been since he's passed him. As he goes through Sunset, less than 0.2 of a second now. Fast right-hander won't provide any overtaking opportunities, but he might have a run going into Clubhouse. He thought about it, didn't he? Luke had to certainly go to the inside to be defensive, and now he's got to hold him off, as Travaglioni now 1.9 seconds back from the leader. So that from Vermeulen, race is run. We'll skip back to that shortly, but I want to stay with this as much as I possibly can. They're going into Neukoop at the top of the hill. That's turn 11 now. Prentice goes to the inside to try and hold the inside line. Blocked the run of the Mercedes, which we're going to have to skip away from just at the moment, because across the line is going to come Jarrod Vermeulen to make it a double in South Africa. So Jarrod Vermeulen wins his home feature race, and that might just put a little bit of daylight between he and Fabio Travaglioni. Travaglioni comes in 2nd for the 2nd time. Prentice, meanwhile, side by side with Aragonis through Cheetah Curve. That's not going to work there, Aragonis. And Aragonis now has 1 more chance going into the final corner. I don't think he's going to do it. He's going to have to try and out-drag him coming out of the final corner, but Prentice blocks the run, and Aragonis loses out, and that is going to be 3rd place for Luke Prentice. You certainly can't say that he didn't fight for it. Aragonis will be disappointed to lose out to a mistake there in 4th position, with Renard Serfontaine taking honours in silver. He's just ahead of Fast Lap, Posh Michelle and Johnny Sharp in 2nd in silver, with Gordon Brown recovering to 6th in class and 8th overall. Chris Gedman will still take 3rd place, having led for most of the race in silver, so he's 9th overall ahead of Andrew Eden and Marco Lino. And Starkloff is in 12th place, with Owen Harris making it a double, an impressive double in having been towards the midfield, to be honest with you. Look, he's still roughly where he started, but it is a very good drive there from Owen Harris, as he's been only overtaken by those in Pro. It's Paul Vidler in 14th. A disappointing return for Paul Vidler ahead of Kazakevich in 15th. So he is 6th in class, with Morgan Grayson 16th. It didn't quite go to plan for him in race number 2. And Serafino Gabino in 17th. Jordan Marshall is in 18th. He's 2nd in class, with Dale Kelleher holding on to 3rd position. A great drive there from Dale Kelleher in 19th to take 3rd in AM. They are ahead of Brooklyn Donkin, who won obviously earlier on, but not quite so much luck in race number 2. They're ahead of Darren Mark Davis in 21st. 4th, with Matthias Gonalons having fallen off the track at some point in the last minute because he was battling for 3rd. He's now 5th. Trevor Mendes recovers to 6th place. Another case of what might have been for the Aston Martin. It was so quick earlier on. They're ahead of Danny Felix and Jamie Thacker, with Luke Richings in 26th, Lee Colpitts in 27th. We didn't see what happened there. Marvin Hook, who led he was so long in the top 2 or 3 of AM, and he's still now, well, he's 28th. Josh Clayton again had another difficult run in. He had a difficult run in this one after slight contact earlier on. They're ahead of Alexander Kalugin and Paul Trotman. Trotman obviously not finishing after his disastrous race, during which he travelled through the pit lane 3 times rather than once. Matteo D'Amica did not finish, along with Wouter Heimans, who hit problems once again earlier on, and Adam Sharp in 34th, with the drive-through unserved due to a start line issue. So that is going to be all of those, all of the positions accounted for. And but it sets us up nicely for the last 2 races. I know we finish in Barcelona. I think we're all Watkins Glen next time out, which is another favourite of the drivers. So, certainly a something to look forward to there. We've got Alexander Kalugin now having the last word once again. I think there's a couple. I think Dale Kelleher is just out there. Let's see if he's just paused. No, I hope he might be doing some donuts. But an excellent third place there for Dale Kelleher in class. 19th on the road, representing real return to form there. Held on when previously, lesser drivers would have cracked. So your winners overall then is Jack Vermeulen, who wins overall and wins in pro. The winner of the silver class in 5th place was Renard Serfontein, which makes it 2 South African winners in race number 2 in South Africa. And Owen Harris completes a double in the AM class. Car 777 in the McLaren, 3.3 seconds off of the top 12. But that will not matter at all because it's a momentous weekend for Owen Harris as he bids to resurrect his championship charge, and that I think will do an awful lot for him. So that's on that note, we will end the broadcast here today. No highlights, normal service to be resumed next weekend with Greg returning to the commentary box and myself as the co-commentator. Thank you for bearing with, thank you for joining me, and we will see you next weekend. Have a lovely